My husband thought I'd beg after he cut off intimacy. Instead, I stopped chasing and walked away. My husband stopped touching me on a Tuesday. Not dramatically. No fight. No explanation. He just stopped. No good night. No good morning. Nothing. At first I thought it was stress. Then I thought it was work. Then I thought it was me. So I tried. I cooked his favorite meals. I dressed differently. I reached for his hand and he moved it away without even looking up from his phone. 3 months of this. 3 months of me shrinking smaller and smaller, wondering what I had done wrong, wondering how to fix something I didn't even understand was broken. And then one evening I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, really looked, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Tired. Small. Desperate. That was the moment everything changed. Not because I found a solution. But because I finally asked myself the right question. Not asterisk how do I get him back, but when did I lose myself? His name was Marcus. We had been married for 5 years, together for 8. He was confident, handsome, the kind of man who always seemed certain about everything while I orbited around his certainty like it was gravity. Looking back now I can see the pattern clearly. But when you are inside something, when it is your daily life and your home and the person you chose, you don't see patterns. You just see Tuesday. Then Wednesday. Then another week gone. It started small, the way these things always do. A kiss goodbye that stopped happening. A hand I reached for that was always somehow busy. Evenings where he sat on his side of the sofa and I sat on mine and the space between us felt wider every night but neither of us named it. I told myself every couple goes through phases. I told myself he was tired. I told myself patience was love. Then the weeks became a month. Then 2. Then 3. I tried everything a woman tries when she is losing something and doesn't yet understand she shouldn't have to fight this hard to keep it. I cooked the meals he used to ask for in our first year. I wore the dress he once said was his favorite. I put my hand on his arm one evening while we watched television and he shifted slightly, not cruelly, not dramatically, just enough. Just enough to make the message clear without having to say a word. That shift. That small, quiet shift. It hurt more than any argument ever had. I started wondering what I had done. I replayed conversations looking for the moment I had said the wrong thing. I apologized for things I wasn't even sure had happened. I made myself smaller, quieter, easier, as if the problem was that I was simply too much and the solution was to become less. He never told me that. He never said anything at all. And somehow the silence was worse than any accusation. One night I asked him directly. I sat down across from him, turned off the television, and asked quietly, "Is something wrong between us?" He looked at me with an expression I still think about. Not angry. Not sad. Completely calm. He said, "I just need space." Then he picked up his phone and kept scrolling. Space. In a marriage. Without explanation. Without conversation. Without any indication of when the space would end or what it was even for. I went to the bathroom and closed the door. I stood at the mirror for a long time. And the woman looking back at me, I barely knew her. She looked exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. She had been reaching for so long that her arms had forgotten what it felt like to simply rest at her sides. I turned off the bathroom light. I walked back to the bedroom. I did not reach for him that night. For the first time in 3 months, I didn't reach for anyone. Something had shifted. Quietly. Completely. And I had absolutely no idea yet how far that shift would take me. The next morning I woke up before Marcus. I made 1 cup of coffee, just one, only mine, and I sat by the kitchen window and watched the street wake up slowly in the early light. It was the first morning in months that I hadn't woken up already thinking about him. Already calculating. already planning how to close the distance before the day had even started. That morning I just sat and drank my coffee and watched the street. And it felt, unexpectedly, like something close to peace. I didn't make a dramatic decision that day. It wasn't like that. There was no single moment where I stood up and declared anything. It was quieter than that. More honest than that. I simply stopped. Stopped reaching. Stopped adjusting. Stopped making myself into whatever shape I thought might finally fit comfortably into the space he was willing to offer me. I started doing things I had quietly abandoned over 8 years without noticing. I called my friend Diane, who I hadn't properly spoken to in almost a year. I signed up for the photography class I had bookmarked and forgotten 18 months earlier. I started going for early morning walks, alone, unhurried, with no destination that required anyone else's approval. Small things. But they were mine. Completely, uncomplicatedly mine. Marcus noticed within 2 weeks. I could see it, the slight confusion when I didn't follow him into the living room after dinner. The pause when he came to bed and I was already reading, relaxed, not waiting. One evening he sat beside me on the sofa, closer than he had in months, and asked what I was reading. I told him. He nodded. I went back to my book. He tried again the following evening. A hand on my shoulder. I looked up, smiled politely, and returned to my conversation with Diane on the phone. I wasn't performing. I wasn't punishing him with a strategy. I was simply no longer available in the way I had trained myself to be, endlessly, desperately, invisibly available. 2 weeks later he came into the kitchen while I was cooking and said he thought we should talk. I turned down the stove and sat across from him and waited. He was uncomfortable in a way I had never seen before. Marcus was always the certain one. That evening he looked like a man who had misplaced something and only just realized it was gone. He said he had been pulling away. He said he thought I would push harder. He admitted, and this was the part that stayed with me longest, that some part of him had wanted to feel needed. Had wanted me to chase. Had equated my desperation with love and my need with proof that he mattered. I listened to everything. Then I said, very quietly, I did chase, Marcus. For 3 months I chased. And all it did was teach me that I had forgotten who I was before I made you the center of everything. He had no answer for that. I'm not leaving tonight, I told him. But I need you to understand that the woman who was willing to disappear to keep you comfortable, she's gone. And she is not coming back. We went to counseling. We did the work. Whether the marriage fully survived is a longer story. But what I know without any doubt is this, I survived. Fully. As myself. The most painful lesson I learned inside that silence was also the most important one I will ever carry. You cannot love someone into choosing you. You cannot shrink yourself into being enough for a person who has decided to withhold. The moment you stop chasing is not the moment you give up, it is the moment you finally choose yourself. And a woman who has chosen herself, who has remembered her own name after months of forgetting it, is not a woman anyone can afford to take for granted twice. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. Your presence is not something to be earned back through desperation. Know your worth, quietly, completely, without needing anyone else to confirm it.